Hey everyone, welcome to Broadband Deployment News. Today I'm going to be talking about the latest RDOF announcement from the FCC that they made this week. They've said that their 10th round of funding is ready to be authorized. I'll be right back. Thanks for joining me. Rick Uzzi here with Zcorum. The FCC has announced their 10th round of funding, and this one is, there's only two companies. Not nearly as much money as the last time in some of these other rounds, but still I'm going to take a look at that, break it down for you. So this is RDOF, that's the Rural Digital Opportunity Fund. This was the reverse auction that the FCC did a couple of years ago where service providers directly bid on census blocks, and in those census blocks they all bid in a reverse auction where they basically their bids were to determine how little they would accept as far as federal funding. So as the clock went down, this was a descending clock that went down, and as that went down, people were saying they would accept less and less money until finally somebody said, okay, we're done. So that's what happened there. And there were different levels that I'll show that you could bid, anywhere from low speeds to up to a gigabit service. And pretty much everybody who won bid in the gigabit level because there were weights associated with that, and I'm going to show that as well. So everybody who won and was bidding in gigabit, and that included, I think with the exception probably of Starlink, they won a lot of areas, but I don't think they were saying they could do gig, but they did win a lot of areas. And then there were a couple of wireless operators that have now come out and said they're going to do a combination of wireless and fiber that bid. So there's three big chunks out there that have not been approved, but right at this moment, two additional ones have been looked at. So we'll check that out today. So you can see here, this is the FCC page. I will go ahead and link to this. When I'm done here and on this page, you'll see that there's the public notice that we'll look at. I'm also going to look at attachment A and attachment B. I also did some totals here for you on attachment A. There's not much to total this time, but I'll link to this page. You can download all of these. So let's first look at the public notice. So you can see here, these are 88 winning bids. Sounds like a lot, 88 winning bids, but it's just two companies. It's 88 locations, basically, within some census block groups. So 88 winning bids ready to be authorized. Bid defaults announced. Ready to be authorized means that they're not authorized yet. They probably will be in 2 weeks or so. Basically, these two operators are at the finish line, and they just need to send in some additional paperwork, and then the FCC will come out and say, okay, we got everything we need, and you're authorized. And, there's no reason that they would not. There's no reason they would stop at this point, because there are hefty fines if you default on a bid, and they're past the point where they could default. So I doubt they would be doing that if they've gotten this far. So you can see here, to be authorized to receive the total 10-year support amounts listed in attachment A. The long-form applicants identified in that attachment are required to submit acceptable, irrevocable standby letters of credit and bankruptcy code opinion letters from their legal counsel for each state where they have winning bids that are ready to be authorized in accordance with the instructions provided below by the applicable deadline, and that's 6 p.m. on June 9th. So they've got till June 9th to get in this letter of credit, and then also an opinion letter from an attorney that says if this company goes into bankruptcy, then these funds cannot be used as part of that bankruptcy. So basically those two things are the final steps, and I'm sure they'll get that in by June 9th. So a couple other things in here I was going to point out. So they talked about cyber broadband. This is one of the ones, this is one of the companies that won in Alabama. It says here that they sought a waiver of the June 7, 2021 ETC documentation deadline for its long-form application. Everybody that submitted and won and then submitted their long-form application had to apply for and qualify as an ETC or an eligible telecommunications carrier, because for RDOF you have to provide both data service and voice service. So everybody needs to be an ETC, and you had to get that in a certain amount of time, and if you didn't get it in that amount of time, then you defaulted, and there were fines for that. So they applied for a waiver, and it says Cyber explains that it filed this ETC petition with the Alabama Public Service Commission within 30 days of the public notice announcing that it was a winning bidder, but it received a notice on January 29th, 2021 that the Alabama PSC lacked jurisdiction. Cyber filed a petition with the FCC for ETC designation on June 7, 2021, receiving a designation on February 22nd, 2022. Cyber diligently submitted its ETC petition to the Alabama PSC within 30 days of the public notice announcing it as a winning bidder, thus beginning its pursuit of an ETC designation within the presumption of good faith period. So they tried, and just bureaucracy or whatever, it didn't happen in time, but they are allowing them, they're granting that waiver for them. So they do have their ETC designation. It just took them longer to get it, but they did apply in the right amount of time. You can see here for defaults, several winning bidders have notified us that they do not intend to pursue some or all of their winning bids. We consider these winning bidders and assignees to be in default for these bids and subject to forfeiture. And that forfeiture can be a hefty fine. It says here, a defaulter will be subject to a base forfeiture per violation of $3,000. A violation is defined as any form of default with respect to the census block group. In other words, there shall be separate violations for each census block group assigned in a bid. So $3,000 per census block group. So that this base forfeiture amount is not disproportionate to the amount of a winning bidder's bid, the Commission has limited the total base forfeiture to 15% of the bidder's total assigned support for the bid for the support term. Don't know what all that means, but I'm sure it's a lot of money. I think that was all I was going to show in here. So again, that's public notice. I'll again link to that. This is the authorized, ready authorized. And again, there's only two on here. So as you look at it, you've got your applicant name, and you can see Cyber Broadband here. This is the one I was just talking about. Got their their FCC registration number. There's the winning bids. There's a bid for each census block group. They're going to be in Alabama. Then there's this particular study area code. Then you've got, so each one of these is a census block group. And then within a census block group, you've got census blocks. So in this particular one, you've got 8 census blocks. In this one, you've got 17, 12, 14, etc. And then in each census block group, you also have a number of locations. And when it says eligible census blocks, within each census block group, there may be census blocks that are not eligible because they already have service that's above the threshold here, the 25 by 3, I think it was for RDOF. Or was it 100 by 20? I can't remember. I get so confused. There's all of these things out now. Then they've got the number of locations, and you can see that varies. And then the winning amount over 10 years. So as you look at these, you realize for each census block group, this is how much they get for that for all of these locations. And then if you split that out, obviously divided by 10, that's how much they get each year over a 10-year period. So then we've got our bids in default, and you can see some of the companies that are on here. There's not that many. Oh, I forgot to show you. So on here, again, these are the winning, or those that are ready to be authorized. So again, we've got Cyber Broadband, Inc., and all in Alabama. And then we've got right here, starting right about here, we got North Texas Fiber. And it's not that many pages. A lot of times, I think the last time I went through this, it was page after page after page, and obviously I didn't show that. Then we've got our default bids. So we've got Farmers Mutual's got a couple, GigaBeam, Newport Utilities, Toral Telephone, Trailwave Fiber in Georgia, which I'm not familiar with. And then one for Valor Telecommunications. They're actually DBA Windstream there. So and you can see again, you know, each one of these census block groups could potentially be $3,000 in forfeiture. So you've got a lot of them are, you know, 1 here, but here's 4, and it could all add up pretty quickly. So it's not for sure that, you know, the FCC is going to look at this, and I don't know. I think there were a couple of petitions to waive this. That in that public notice, the FCC said no, we're not going to waive it, and here's why. They didn't mention all of them. So I guess there's some potential that they won't all have to pay this, but I don't know that. And then what I did was I went ahead and broke it down. Again, there's only 2 operators in here. So we got Cyber Broadband, Inc. in Alabama, and they bid on 46 census block groups. And out of that, there were 522 eligible census blocks. That was 4,116 locations in those, and that would be like a household. And then you've got the total money that they're going to be getting over that 10-year period. And the average amount per location, I just averaged that out by dividing the money by the number of locations. So they will get $332 over 10 years so it doesn't seem like much, over 10 years for each location. So basically that's $33 a year per location that they get in this case. And then you've got, these guys did a little bit better in their bidding, or it just could be just however many people bid. There might have been more people bidding in this Alabama group here than in this Texas group, so the numbers got lower. But here they've got about 1,300 or so per location, and they bid on, you can see here, they've got 894 locations in what they bid in. You can see it's quite a bit more. You can see the difference here. So you got 46 census block groups in Alabama for 4,000 plus locations. Then you got 42 census block groups for only 894 locations. So these are probably more rural, more spread out. It's Texas. Texas is big, so that would probably account for that. And that would probably account for maybe why they're getting more per location. It could be longer distances. In some cases, they may be high cost, in which case they can get additional money for that. So it may be related to that. You can see the total here of, again, it's 88 census block groups, 5,000 plus, just over 5,000 locations, and a total of $2.53 million approximately. And then again, an average of $816 per location if you average the two of those out. And you can compare this to what I showed last month that came out on May 3rd. You can see there were quite a few more service providers that were considered ready to authorize at that point. And then you can see there were a lot more states. You got California, Oregon, Texas, Michigan, Ohio, Illinois, Indiana, all of these states here. And then you can see the amounts as well. So we've got, actually I was not down at the top there. So you can see there's others here as well. So that's longer than even I thought. So you can see the amounts, and you can see here $199 million, almost $200 million versus about $2.5 million. So roughly 70, I think that's what, 70 to 80 times the amount of money last time than there is this time. So this is what is going on in this 10th round. I wanted to look at this story because I mentioned there's some big operators that have not yet been authorized. So the biggest one out there that we're all kind of wondering what's going to happen to, well, there's two big ones we're wondering about. Actually, the biggest winner was LTD Broadband, and they've had some issues. They actually were fined, I think was it $100,000 or was it $100 million? Probably $100,000. Because it might have been $100 million. I can't remember. Numbers get ridiculous. But they were fined because there's a quiet period that you're supposed to have, throughout this process where you're not supposed to be in touch with anybody else that's bidding. And they had some third party go out and contact people about funding. And one of the people that they contacted was Cox Communications, who was also a bidder. And this was never reported back to anybody, which it was supposed to have been. So they were fined for that. So they were already not in good position for that. A lot of people are saying that they do not have the resources or experience to be able to do this in everywhere that they build, that they bid. So this is not Nextlink I'm talking about. I'm talking about LTD Broadband. So LTD Broadband, they won approximately, when I say won, they won the auction. They have not been given any money yet. They have not been said that they are ready to authorize anything, as far as I know. So LTD Broadband, it was about $1.3 billion. So they were the largest recipient, or winner, not a recipient. They were the largest winner in the auction. Not second largest, but the next one that everybody is wondering about is Starlink. So that's the low Earth orbit satellite service from SpaceX, Elon Musk, and they won $885 or so $1,000. Is that right? No, million, excuse me, 885 million. Again, the numbers are crazy. So 885 million that they won in all of the bids that they did, and they have not been told that they're ready to be authorized. And there's really I think it's really unlikely that they're going to get probably any of that. Although I suppose it's possible that as the FCC looks at certain areas, it says, you know what, this is on top of a mountain, and there's nobody that can get wireless or fiber there anytime reasonably, and nobody's bid to do that. So we're going to give them these particular census blocks. So it's possible to get some. But certainly not the vast number that they put in for. In a lot of cases, they were just looking at the FCC's information and said, well, we have satellites up there, and here's a lot of unserved areas. We're just going to go ahead and bid in all of these. It doesn't really matter, because they don't have to build anything, right? They've just got satellites up there. They can launch more satellites if they need to for more bandwidth, but basically they were kind of already set. And that's one thing that a lot of people were upset about, was they didn't have to go do anything. They were just bidding wherever. So that's a big one. And then you got Nextlink. Nextlink, they were, let's see, where were they at? I think it was 2.4 3.4 million or so, I believe, that these guys had, trying to get my numbers mixed up here. All in all, it was like 2.6 billion between the three of them that has not been allocated. So these guys, so Nextlink, internet, a fixed wireless access. So I'm sure they put this press release out and are doing all of this to kind of get people into the mindset that wireless can do gig speeds, because like I said at the outset, most people bid on the gig level tier, and I will go ahead and show what the tiers look like here in a minute. So they bid at the gig level tier. It says they, fixed wireless access provider that counts Cable One among its backers, so that's a cable company, is preparing to offer 1 gig speeds after completing a successful field trial. After preparing to offer speeds after completing a successful field trial that shipped data over 6 gigahertz spectrum band. Nextlink said the trial, based on an FCC experimental license, achieved data throughputs in excess of 1 gig downstream and 500 meg upstream to each subscriber module under a full load, utilizing a 160 megahertz channel at a distance of 2 miles. It's interesting that it's an FCC experimental license. So again, I don't know if they're working closely with the FCC as part of this process, and as part of this they're trying to demonstrate to the FCC, hey, we can do this. And if the FCC says, yeah, it looks like you can do it, then they will maybe release the funds, or at least some of them. That may be where this is going. Nextlink said it has big plans for use of the 6 gigahertz band, intending to offer gigabit level services sometime in 2022 across a fixed wireless footprint that covers parts of Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Nebraska, Iowa, and Illinois. The company, which today offers a mix of uncapped fixed wireless tiers up to 500 meg, plans to make gigabit level services available using its fixed wireless infrastructure to its existing base, as well as in new deployments in rural areas, coming by way of government subsidy programs. Upon full commercial deployment later this year, we look forward to rolling out gigabit speed plans in the entirety of our existing fixed wireless service network, plus our prospective network expansion for the FCC's Rural Digital Opportunity Fund, or RDOF program. Bill Baker, Netlink's founder and CEO, in a statement, ultimately this expansion of gigabit fixed wireless will cover over 4 million households and businesses. And then another quote here, the promise of 6 gigahertz enabling gigabit speeds over wireless is real, and wireless enables Nextlink to roll out gigabit speeds faster than we can with fiber, said Claude Aiken, the former president and CEO of Wireless Internet Service Providers Association, so WISPA. So Claude, just very recently, he was the CEO of WISPA, and he just recently joined Nextlink as Chief Strategy Officer. He says, we eagerly await the FCC's approval of the automated frequency coordination so that we can begin deploying this across our footprint. So it does sound like they're working with the FCC on this technology, again, probably trying to make the case that their technology can do the gigabit speeds that they signed up and said they would do. And they, along with LTD Broadband, who also was primarily wireless, have said that they're going to do fixed wireless where they can, and if there are places where they have to do fiber, they're going to do fiber, but it's going to be kind of a mix. So when you're doing wireless, you have to have a lot of fiber anyway. You got to have that kind of that X haul or back haul, front haul, whatever you're having to do, need to be doing with that fiber to all of the access points. So they have said, along with LTD, that in some cases we may do fiber, in some cases we'll do a mixture. It'll be fiber most of the way and then wireless. So in any event, it's going to be a mixture. At least they're going to have fiber on the back end doing that. So that's their story. So again, these guys have got, again, I think, so let's see if I can remember these numbers. So we had LTD Broadband, I think at 2-point-something million, then we had SpaceX at 800 and something billion, then SpaceX at 800 and something million, and then these guys were over $1 billion, I think, if I remember. I can't remember. I'll go back and look at those numbers. So again, I wanted to talk about this. So this is the RDOF tiers. So when people were bidding, as they went through this reverse auction, they would bid on one of these tiers. So they could bid the minimum level, 25/3. That's the minimum at that time, and it still is officially the minimum speed for broadband service, 25/3. And they had to offer a usage of 250 gigs a month, and then there was a weight associated with each one of these things. That weight was 50. You could also do what they call a baseline 50 by 5 or above baseline 100 by 20, which today is, that's kind of what we're moving towards for the minimum, 100 by 20 or even 100 symmetrical. And then you can see the usage amount went up for that. And then you had your gigabit tier, which was a gig by 500. It wasn't necessarily symmetrical that you had to do. You had to do a gig by 500 meg. So if you bid, you had a weight assigned with that, and the more weight there was, the more it weighed down your bid. So if you were early on in the auction process, it didn't matter that much. You could bid at the minimum level, and you might actually get a chance to win that if other people weren't bidding at a higher tier. But then as the clock went down, it would get more advantageous for people that were bidding a gig, and that's because of the weight, and that's where most people wound up. Again, I don't think Starlink was probably somewhere in here. They might have bid for this, although that's close to what they can do on the up right now. I'm not sure. So, and then you've got your latency. So what's interesting here is low latency is considered anything less than or equal to 100 milliseconds, and that's not really very low. You've got, in fact, in the new RDOF, not RDOF, excuse me, the new bipartisan infrastructure law on the BEAD. The service providers right now are starting to get ready to submit their coverage data, and they're going to submit that to the FCC so that we'll get new broadband maps. The official time to do that is going to be June 30th through September 1st, I believe are the dates on that, yeah. So they're going to go ahead and submit their data, and when you do that, they have to say what speed they are offering, and they also have to say whether or not it's low latency. And that's just a yes or a no, or basically a true or false. So when they submit that data, if it is 100 milliseconds or less, then they can say low latency, true. So that's not really that low. The 750 milliseconds, that can only have come from them thinking at some point that they were going to maybe allow satellite coverage, and this would be difficult. It could be done, but a geosynchronous satellite is somewhere close to this. It might be 600 milliseconds. A low Earth orbit satellite comfortably fits within, I think, this 100 milliseconds. So the low Earth orbit, like Starlink, could qualify for low latency there. So these are the tiers, and again, most everybody wound up in here, including these wireless providers. So they have to demonstrate, and I don't think the FCC is convinced yet that they can offer gig service. I'm assuming that they bid in the gig service area, and therefore they have to demonstrate that they can do that. So we see that Nextlink is working on that technology. Haven't heard a whole lot about LTD broadband. Again, they were the largest winner in the auction. And then again, Starlink is really up in the air as well. So we don't know what's going to happen with them. In the BEAD program, Starlink is not considered reliable broadband. There's no satellite that's considered reliable broadband. Surprisingly enough, DSL was included. Of course, it's got to be above the 100 by 20 to be considered a served area. That would be underserved if it's below this, and unserved if it's below that in the new infrastructure deal. But DSL is allowed, and then, like I say, satellite's not. Fixed wireless is allowed as long as it is in licensed spectrum under the BEAD program. So it's got to be either licensed spectrum or a mixture of unlicensed and licensed. If it's completely an unlicensed spectrum in an area, then that does not qualify as reliable broadband as well for some reason. I think probably because they think there might be too much contention in an unlicensed kind of spectrum. So anyway, that's what's going on right now with RDOF. I see here that, let's see, Conway Fan 98. I recently saw a power company contractor taking photos of poles in front of my home. Not sure if it's a routine pole check or a pole check for Charter's RDOF build. I haven't heard anything yet. Yeah, they could be very well doing some like kind of a walkthrough, walking out the plant and seeing what kind of make-ready work there needs to be. What will it take for us to get fiber on this pole? So that could be good news for you. I know that I've seen your comments before, and we've chatted a little bit on YouTube. So I think you are not happy with your internet, so hopefully that will be improving for you. So you're looking at this from a consumer's perspective, and as are a lot of people. So this certainly a lot of money out there, and right now we're seeing there's a bit of RDOF funds that are coming. There's a lot more money out there from RDOF, but again, a lot of it is most of the people I think that have bid fiber, straight fiber, have already gotten their money. I think there's only a few folks left, and like I mentioned, the 3 big chunks of that. So we're going to, I guess, see what happens with that and where that goes. So Thanks for joining me on this Friday. I will be back next week with broadband deployment news. If this was helpful, give me a like. If you're not subscribed, click the subscribe button, click the little bell, and you'll be notified when I'm live. If you are a service provider and you need assistance with broadband, anything from feasibility studies through managed services on an existing broadband network, let us know. You can give us a call, send us an email, check out our website, see everything we do. We do everything from those early stages for you. We can get that set up for you all the way through providing end user support for your broadband subscribers and diagnostics, those kinds of things. So our goal is to make the service less expensive for you, more reliable. That helps you keep costs down, both for your consumers, your customers, and then also your own maintenance costs, those kinds of things. Appreciate it. I will see you next time. Bye-bye.